All right, bunnies, today we are talking about the collaboration between Dolls Kill and Playboy. So I actually had an entirely different video planned for this week, more of a historical deep dive, and I didn't plan to do another merchandise video for quite some time. But when I heard about Dolls Kill doing a Playboy collaboration that is oddly reminiscent to Y2K, I had to take a look at it. And the collaboration actually highlights something that I've had a little bit of a problem with in terms of the Playboy Corporation for quite some time. I planned to make an entire video about this at a later date, and I still do plan to do a deep dive into this, but this collaboration really highlights some of the erasure we have seen between Playboy and some of the women Hugh Hefner have had relationships with. But before we get into all of that, let's dig right in. Let's take a look at this collaboration. First off, I'm completely blown away. I feel like this is a blast from the past. I'm pretty sure we've all had a Playboy blanket in our lives. And there's a lot of winter wear here. We see a lot of sports themes and a lot of that kind of classic Playboy pink that we see from the mid-2000s. So let's take a look at each product specifically. Next, we have this kind of cozy long sleeve Playboy shirt, which, again, it has like that racing vibe. And again, did we all not have a Playboy blanket at one point or another? I know I did. Actually, it's probably long gone, but I'm like, maybe it's in the storage unit somewhere. And next, we have these really cute little slippers. I will say it's just not my personal taste, but these charms seem like they'd be annoying. Is that just me? It's, again, it could be personal taste, but that just feels like a little too much, a little extra. Now, this is interesting. Here we have Mansion Nights Playboy set, and this is where I think we start to dig into this collaboration a little bit more and the purpose of this collaboration. And like I've said, I plan to do a much bigger deep dive into the erasure of these three women in regards to the brand. But my biggest problem with this is Hugh Hefner had no problem mixing business with pleasure. Very often, girls who posed for the magazine would become girlfriends or a part of the bedroom routine, quote unquote. And very often girlfriends would become playmates. So Hugh Hefner really had no problem dipping his pen in company ink and was very much proud of it, flaunted it. So I guess my question is, why would the company feel so comfortable kind of retaliating against the women who he engaged in these personal relationships with? At the end of the day, whether anyone likes it or not, Holly, Bridget, and Kendra were a big part of Playboy and its popularity, especially amongst a particular generation and people who still like Playboy to this day. Holly actively worked at the studio beyond just, for TV. Kendra has always come at the defense of the company and Hugh Hefner, so has Bridget, and Holly has always spoken really highly about the brand and still does. Of course, she shares the truth about the reality of a private relationship, but she really seems to love Playboy and actually posed for the France version of Playboy pretty recently. So I guess my big point is this collaboration is very clearly not meant to be just about Y2K Playboy licensing coming back or Playboy products coming back. It actually seems to be really heavily about the girls who lived at the mansion during that time. And the girls who lived at the mansion during that time were the girls next door. And we see that not only with the pink pajamas, and I think, you could argue, they're just pink pajamas. But if you look at the title, it specifically says Nights at the Mansion, which I don't know if it's on purpose or what, but again, is really telling to what they were trying to capture here. And there's another long-sleeved cozy t-shirt that also says Homely Hills, which again would be a reference to the women specifically living on the Playboy property. So part of us could argue that yes, this is just meant to kind of revive some of the merchandise that Playboy had in mid-2000s as a way to kind of capture the nostalgia of millennial women. Of course, sure, right? But when you see that there's items and pieces of clothing titled Nights at the Mansion, Cozy Nights at the Mansion, Homely Hills, and then pajamas that were specifically worn by women of this era who were sleeping with Hugh Hefner, it's really hard to argue that this isn't about the girls specifically, or a collaboration that is meant to highlight the work that these girls have done. Let's finish going over some of these products before I give my final thoughts. So we have this little weekender bag, which I typically consider weekender bags to be larger. This seems really small for a weekender bag, but you know, that's just personal thoughts and opinions. Then we have this kind of faux bunny hat, which I swear I've seen Bridget wear something similar, but I could not find a picture of it, but it is super cute. And then we have this Playboy choker, which I'm going to be honest, looks like it is horrifically uncomfortable. And then we have kind of this Playboy lingerie, which we would see in very similar Playboy merchandise at the time. And the little pink bows, of course, remind me of the Girls Next Door ladies. And then we have these cute skirts. And then we have this beanie. And I actually found this old Playboy tank top, which reminds me of it. And then we have the Argyle. So this is a Holly Madison inspiration outfit that a fan put together. And of course, we see the Argyle. Argyle was really big with Playboy at this time, both in their merchandise and the girls. And then, of course, we see Bridget here wearing the Argyle. And I actually think she borrowed this sweater from Holly because we would see Holly wearing it in promotions. So see, we have the sweater right here. And then we have the sweater again in Girls Next Door promotion videos. And we have these cute little sweaters. Adorable. This actually reminds me a lot of the movie The House Bunny. There's a scene where Anna Faris tries to be like a smart bunny, and it reminds me of that. I think it's super cute. And this is the kind of cozy one that I was talking about, where it says chilling at the mansion, and it specifically says Homely Hills, which again is what I was talking about before when I said it feels like it is less about let's revive clothes from Y2K Playboy licensing deals, and let's focus specifically on women who would have lived at the mansion or the Playboy property at that time. And I will admit, it looks really comfortable. Like, I would see myself purchasing this one, specifically because of the Homely Hills. And it does remind me of these ladies I feel like I grew up with. And then we have some more just kind of classic Playboy merchandise. We have this racer jacket. We have this velour tracksuit thing, which, oh gosh, if you ever need proof that this is Y2K coded, the velour tracksuits completely do it with the writing on the butts. Then we have these dresses. I feel like I definitely had a top that looked just like this in the early 2000s that I wore to like a middle school dance. And when I first saw this, I thought it was like a night dress. And then I saw the back and I was like, oh no, that is not a night dress. That is a going out dress. And then we have these martini glasses. I'm actually always a big fan of home decor that's branded. I tend to lean in that direction. And then, yes, this is very 2000s. We've all worn something like this. Or maybe it's not worn. We've seen it on someone else, at least. And then we have this cropped hoodie, which is so freaking cute. Oh my gosh. This is something I could see Holly wearing. And then we have this very kind of classic 2000s little purse, as well as this big hoodie. I mean, these clothes look really phenomenal on this model, I have to say. Oh my gosh, $30 for underwear? I could never. And then, oh my gosh, this is a purse that could have stayed in the past. And then we have this skirt. Now, I was looking at this skirt and I was like, this material looks so odd. Like, it looks like plastic. So I was looking to see if I could find the material, and right here under product details, it is 97% polyester. So I actually have a Playboy merchandise catalog from 2007, which would have been smack dab in the middle of Girls Next Door and Playboy's success amongst young girls. So we are seeing some things that look kind of familiar. Specifically, we kind of have that pink and that black that we're seeing a lot in this drop. And then, of course, we have the men's wear. It almost feels like there's more menswear than women's wear, but that would make sense. This was primarily targeted towards men who are buying this catalog. And then, of course, we have the clothing. So we're seeing some of the Playboy labeled clothes. That looks like Sarah Underwood. I wonder if it is. This has very much like Pam Anderson vibes. And here we're seeing some of like the pink kind of tracksuits, the bedazzled, and that Playboy logoing. So you can definitely see some of the inspiration here. Again, we have the pink and we have the black. And then we have our PJs. So we have some of the classic kind of Playboy themed stuff here. I think we've seen Bridget wearing those PJs before. And then we have our lovely cover model. So there we go. This is a seemingly what this collaboration is based off of. Ultimately, this seems like a really cute drop for people who really loved the era of Playboy circled around the mid-2000s and the Girls Next Door. I know I personally have already purchased 2 things, but I'm going to keep what I purchased kind of to myself. And looking at the old Playboy merchandise catalog from 2007, you can definitely see some of the inspiration, such as some of the type. We had a little bit of like an Argyle inspiration, as well as the pink and the black. So that alone, you can argue that this collaboration is nothing more than a relaunch of mid-2000s Playboy merchandise. However, I think to kind of stop there would be a little short-sighted. Considering there's merchandise that are titled things like Nights at the Mansion, which feature pink pajamas that are infamously known as pajamas that the women would wear who would sleep with Hugh Hefner. Some completely expecting to, some a little bit more surprised than others. As well as merchandise called Chilling at the Mansion, featuring the homely hills. So again, this drop seems to be, yes, a focus on popular Playboy merchandise the mid-2000s, as well as women who would have been living on the property at that time, or at least women who would have been sleeping with Hugh Hefner at that time. And when we think about women who were in relationships with Hugh Hefner in the mid-2000s, we can't ignore that was likely the most popular time for Playboy amongst the people who this collab is aimed to. And it's hard not to feel that it's a little hypocritical of the Playboy brand itself, that they very do often try to erase the girls from their brand. If you go to the Playboy.com website and search their names, nothing comes up. Whereas if you search the names of other Playmates, they definitely come up. So it's no secret Playboy has been kind of trying to ignore that these women exist, which is extremely unfortunate as none of them have said anything poor about the brand itself. And if they've said anything poor, it's about their personal relationships with the person who owned it at one point. And I think to make a collaboration like this, which is so clearly a throwback to them and their time period while simultaneously pretending they don't exist, feels a little bit like a slap in the face. But what do you think? Maybe I'm reaching here. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. Like I said, this is something I've thought about for a while, and I do plan to do a much larger deep dive into this topic. But I would love to know what you think. So let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next week with our originally scheduled video. All right, bunnies. Bye!